Welcome on a journey with me in African Spatial Studio. Now that we understand where this channel is trying to get us, let's firstly understand what spatial design is so that it can kickstart the journey. Spatial design is not just about buildings or cities. It's a multidisciplinary field that interacts with architecture, with urban design, landscape architecture, interior design, and even art and sociology and politics. It's about how we shape space and how space in turn shape human behavior, identity, access, and meaning. Scholars see spatial design not only as technical practice but also as a social, cultural, and political act. It's about who space is for, how it is accessed, and what stories it tells. To decode space and for us to understand its influence on us and vice versa, I want to introduce some of the few thinkers of or in spatial design, highlighting what makes space and how it can be approached. Known for his influential work and referenced a lot in spatial design, Henry Lefebvre wrote The Production of Space, which was published in 1991. In this, he argues and highlights that space is not just a physical material, it's a product of social interactions. Drawing from Henry Lefebvre is Doreen Massey, who wrote For Space in 2005. In this, she argues and highlights how she saw space. She saw space as relational, always shifting, shaped by interactions and diversity. Edward Soja introduces us to the third space, where he argues that space is not just physical or material. Again, Edward draws from Henry. He claims that space is also lived, imagined, it is also symbolic. Third space is everything that is lived, practiced, imagined, and spatially represented. Designly Ways of Knowing, written by Nigel Cross in 2006. Here he highlights how designers approach problems through visual, spatial, intuitive thinking. He claims that design is not just a product, but is a form of knowledge. Space is a Machine, which was published in 1996 by Bill Hillier, where he highlights method that shows how spatial layout influence movement, interaction, and behavior. He says space is not a background, but an active agent in shaping society. Last but not least of the theories we are exploring in this video is Jane Rendell. Jane Rendell sees spatial design as a critical and political act, merging art, theory, and activism. She claims this in A Place Between, which was published in 2006. In this video, we'll dive into details on Henry, Massey, and Edward, and then the rest will continue on a different video. A French philosopher and sociologist is introducing us to the production of space, where he's showing us or explaining to us that space is a product of social activities. In this, he's introducing us to three folds that are interconnected. The first one is introducing is perceived space, which is physical and material space that we interact with every day, which is a park, which is a passage, a street that is also used different to what it was designed for, maybe by informal traders. And in this, he's trying to bring forth that it is important to observe how people actually use space. And this is especially for designers. It shouldn't just be how it was intended to be used. In conceived space, which is the second fold, is introducing us to professional presentation of space in maps, plans, policies, designs, which he's saying that this is where spatial decisions are made and is often disconnected to how people use the space in actually every day. For example, mentioned before, a street designed for working, and now on the side there's informal trading, which was not thought of in the design. in the design process. The third one, he's introducing us to a lived space, which is representational space. This is space as it is experienced, as it imagined, and emotionally felt by people, which include memory, identity, culture, spiritual and resistance. All these are connected to each other. Lived space can be how you will feel in a very fast street or a very fast road where there's hooting on the side, there is formal, informal trading, there is people running around, in comparison to where it's quiet. It's just trees, it's just you walking. There's a different feeling to that. And you would ask why this matters. Henry Lefebvre theories are bringing us to ask questions, critical questions such as: is this space designed only from above? Or does it reflect the people who live in it? Or how it feels? And who also gets to decide who the space is for or what it is for? And how can we design with all these dimensions in mind, not just technical drawings with just lines? Drawing from Henry Lefebvre is Doreen Massey from For Space. She adds a relational perspective. She adds that space is always in motion, created through interaction, diversity, and power. Unlike a fixed container, space is a process. It is constantly negotiated and reshaped by human behavior. In South Africa, Massey's perspective is very powerful. It reminds us that there is a lot of diversity, history that is also in layers, migration, modernity that all coexist. There are multiple experiences of space. For some, it may be traumatic, it may be a symbol of pride, place of economic hustle, and a daily commute. All this brings us to awareness of space and its effect on us, and in turn, us on it. It may give us the courage to ask how that can we have a space that evolve with people who use it every day or most of the time? Do we need a space that is a process or a space that is stagnant? It is a stagnant product. Is there room for difference? Is there room for diversity? Can space become a site of dialogue and possibilities rather than exclusion and division we see today? On the third theorist, we have Edward Soja, who extend from Lefebvre's third framework. In the publication Thirdspace, his concept of third space is reminding us that space is never just physical or mental. It is also symbolic, lived, and this is where culture, resistance, identity overlaps. This helps us to think beyond binaries like rural or urban or informal and formal. You may ask, what is third space? The third space is everything that is lived, imagined, and spatially represented. This is also pulling us back to Lefebvre's third fold, where Edward introduces us to third space, which is physical material measured through buildings, streets, and infrastructure. On the second space, he is introducing us to mental and representational, which refers to how space is conceived in our mind through maps, plans, and ideologies. On the third space, he's introducing us to lived and symbolic and experiential. This is the space of everyday life where the real and imagined collide, how people actually experience the space. In this, Edward invites us to see space as layered, fluid, and full of overlapping meanings. A place can be formal on paper, which is second space, and informal in use, which is first place, and spiritually significant, which is third place, all at once. Soja's theory is especially very relevant in our context in South Africa, where space is deeply contested and politicized, and where lived reality often don't match what is planned. Together, these three theories teach us that space is layered, which is through Lefebvre's perspective, dynamic through Massey's perspective, and symbolic through Soja's third space framework. They remind spatial practitioners to consider not only how space are planned, but how they are lived, remembered, and constantly refined. You may wonder and ask, why does this matter? Why have I brought these theories forward? But look at it this way: all these thinkers give us a tool to unpack the South African spatial condition where apartheid, colonialism, and unequal development has left scars in the landscape. Today, spatial planning continues to shape who gets to live where, who has access to water, to transport, school, and even more, and how we integrate rural areas with urban opportunities. Our cities and towns are not accidental. They are designed and often designed to exclude. But spatial design also gives us a tool to reimagine more just inclusive environment. As someone rooted in the South African context, I believe it's time to ask bold question. How can spatial design reconnect the rural and the urban areas if that's a way forward? How can we center African ways of living, moving, and being in our design thinking? And how can we transform space to serve dignity, equity, and sustainability? This is just the beginning. Join me as we explore what spatial design really is, how it impacts us, and how we can use it as a tool for transformation. Thank you for joining me on this video. See you again on the next video. Subscribe, like, comment, and even share the link with your friends. Thank you very much. Bye.